Welcome to The Path. This podcast is a production of the men's ministry of First Baptist Church in Hendersonville, Tennessee.
Welcome to the Path Podcast. I am Jeff Tarkington along with fcarney. Today our guest is Brian Smart. Brian is on staff here at First Baptist, has been here about a year now, I would say, but he is from Hendersonville, but has gone around to some different areas of the world. So we're excited to hear about him, his story, his family, and what brought him back to the Hendersonville area. So Brian, welcome to the Path Podcast.
I appreciate you guys having me on. Been looking forward to it. I'm a little disappointed that you guys kept me number 20, 25 in line, but that's okay.
Hey, man, we saved the best for last.
This might be our last episode, depending on how you do. So no pressure.
Oh, that's good. That's good stuff.
So I'm sure there's a lot of people in the church that you haven't had a chance to meet yet. So I'd love for people to be able to get an introduction to you, what your job is here. What is your title as far as being on staff here?
So I'm director of young families, and so my responsibility is to make sure that young families have the resources that they need to be better families, be better fathers, be better mothers, and so hopefully we can get them in the connect groups, get them the support that they need spiritually, as well as just having a healthy relationship with the Lord and other people in the community.
So I know you, well, let's go ahead and just talk about how you grew up and everything. I know I've known you since you were, I guess, 14.
Yes, I was a freshman when you were a senior in high school.
And that was at Beach High School. I was lucky enough to have to take a freshman class my senior year because I moved to Tennessee and that class wasn't required where I moved from. So I was the lone senior in a class full of freshmen.
That's wonderful.
But
with a broke jaw.
I did break my jaw. So
Bull riding, right?
it was bull riding.
Yeah, that's cool, though.
Bull falling offing. So.
Yeah.
So were you born, raised, and everything right here in?
Born, raised Hendersonville, but back then, I'm 45, so back then we didn't even know that this side of Hendersonville existed. And so there was no bypass. We only stayed on the Long Hollow side, and the rest of the Hendersonville, I guess proper, stayed on the Hendersonville side. We stayed on the county side. So that's why I don't really know that many people at First Baptist. Just having the opportunity to get to know other people that grew up here, but grew up whether they be at Hendersonville or they be at Gallatin, has been unique. It's been interesting because I thought I'd come back home and see everybody that I knew, and the vast majority of people that I interact with on a day-to-day basis, I didn't know. I have no relationship with them prior to First Baptist, so it's been really cool to get to know other people's stories in the Hendersonville area.
And like I said, you're from here. When I moved here, we were both at Beach High School, and we actually lived not far from each other. I lived on Newman's Trail, and you lived right in that same neighborhood too. So we didn't really hang out because I was a senior.
Yeah, you didn't want to hang out with a freshman.
You were a freshman.
Yeah, we were freshmen, and
but we did have quite a few mutual friends.
Correct. Especially as we got older.
Yeah. It's fun, just talking to Brian, catching up and hearing what people are doing now. Some of the people that were kind of wild and stuff back in the day, and they stayed wild for a while.
Yeah, Jeff tried to arrest everybody when he became a police officer.
Well, y'all were still in high school probably
yes,
too. So.
Jeff chased us.
Something we didn't mention is you're one of three. You're a triplet.
I'm a triplet. It's I'd probably say it's, besides the Lord saving me, having a wife and a kid has probably been the best blessing. I mean, you got a built-in support group everywhere you go. And so I know we'll talk a little bit about mission work, but my twin brother got to go with me, and he was there for 4 years, 4 of the 7.5. And then my sister stayed back and did all the fundraising and all of the admin, buying the plane tickets back home and that kind of stuff. So she was kind of like our travel agent and making sure that we were taken care of. So it's been pretty cool.
Is it just the three of you? Was there any other siblings?
I have two brothers, a half brother and a half sister, and then 2 stepsisters.
Okay.
And everybody's pretty close for the most part. They didn't grow up here, but me, Brandon, and Brooke did grow up here, and Brandon and Brooke are still here as well. So all 3 of us are back in our middle ages, all back together. And we have 3 sets. There's 3 of us, but there's 8 girls as far as giving my mom grandkids. So she got 8 girls, no boys.
Wow.
So bless my mom that she didn't have multiples of me and Brandon. That's great. As a grandparent.
So for you, what was life like growing up?
Man, I mean, I think what's been really cool is to see Hendersonville change over the decades, really. And growing up on the beach side of Hendersonville was like you were just growing up in the Wild West. I mean, it was like whatever went. I mean, we had county police. We never saw you unless we came over on your side. But
Yeah.
I mean, hunt, fish, ride 4-wheelers, kind of wide open.
It was a little more rural.
Oh,
It's grown a lot.
Yeah, parents didn't know where you were at, but knew that if somebody found you doing something that you weren't supposed to be doing, you're gonna get told on and get beat before you got home anyway. So, but everybody looked out for everybody's kids, and everybody just spent the night wherever you dropped that night, and it was pretty cool growing up.
Yeah, and of course, growing up being a triplet, everybody knew who y'all were.
My sister was homecoming queen.
It's unique though. You don't have that many. You have twins, but you don't have that many triplets that are going through school. So everybody in the school would always know, the smart triplets
Right.
and everything. In high school, what were you involved in high school? Were you sports clubs or this?
So I played football and then I wrestled. So I was more on the sports side, but I'd like to say that I had some creativity in my life, but never got involved with any of the arts. So it was always it was really either you're going to be outdoors or you're playing sports or working for some farmer, begging him to give you some money so that you could actually go do something.
Yeah.
And of course, the farmers would come up with the most outrageous things that they didn't want to do. So we would make sure that we got paid by working for the farmers. It was pretty cool.
Did you grow up going to church?
I got involved with church because of the men of Long Hollow. And at that time, Long Hollow had split, and it was very small. And David Landreth had just come on, and they had really, really good group of men in the community that basically were involved in everything, whether it be sports or just in the community as far as owners of businesses. And so they really just rallied all the students. And so I was really exposed to church through FCA. And so FCA at Hunter was really big. And then when you got involved with that is really when the men of Long Hollow just kind of grabbed you and said, hey, we'll teach you about being a godly man. And it was really, really good outreach that they had. And I still have really good friends that all were a part of that. I mean, so, you go off to college and you have high school buddies and I've lived in different countries, but it still comes back to those guys that poured into us and those other guys that were in your youth group with you. And those are probably my closest friends still to today.
When was that? What part of high school was that in? Was that later part when all that started going on, or was it?
No, it's from the very beginning. I mean, they got you pretty much when you were freshman year on. And then really that was the only thing, truth be told, that was the only thing we could do. I mean, there was nothing on that side of Hendersonville but Long Hollow Church. And so if you wanted to go do something, you went to church. And even if there wasn't something to do, you still hung out in the parking lot because that was the only place over there that you could go to until we got that bypass, and then we could go to I guess the bowling alley would probably be the bowling alley and the volleyball courts. So
a lot of stuff happened at those volleyball courts.
Yes, they did. All the people that are growing up in Hendersonville that think this is this big city, it was absolutely nothing here. We had 3 places to hang out, and that was either church, the bowling alley, or the volleyball courts.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about FCA and stuff, so growing up and in your family, was going to church, was it not like, every Sunday we're going to go to church?
No, we didn't. We weren't church-going family. Now everybody goes now. Okay. Just really, truly the influence that David Landreth had, I think, on the community on that side. I know that this side had
Brother Glenn.
Yeah, Brother Glenn. And I think that if someone ever wrote a history book on Hendersonville from, the mid-'80s and '90s, you'd really see an impact on just those 2 men.
Yeah.
And how much they really helped the community. It's kind of wild that you go back and you talk to people and you're like, hey, were you under David Landreth or were you under Brother Glenn? Mm-hmm. And now you can just go back and talk about it and know that we were truly blessed.
Those 2 guys were they were very close.
Very close.
Yep. And you would think, sometimes churches will get into this competition with each other, but it wasn't like that with them. They were very close. In fact, I was told Brother Glenn was kind of a mentor towards David Landreth when he came here because Glenn Weekly was already established.
Right. And David was young I think David is mid to late 30s when he first came in. And so just them being both of those men at that time. I would love for someone to be able to take that study and say, hey, you know, how many people did they really influence? And people that still talk about them today. I mean, because that's 30 years ago, and you know, we still talk about David Landreth, and you know, this church still talks about Brother Mike,
Brother Glenn.
Yeah. And so it's wild to know that back then when this place was so small that it had two really pillars that loved the Lord and could really shape the spiritual things that are going on in Hendersonville at that time.
Yeah, so growing up like that, church wasn't a huge aspect of your life, of your family's life. And then you get involved in FCA. You said that was huge, in Long Hollow. So when did you become a Christian?
So middle school, sixth grade, we had a real clear message that I remember it still being in the library and the man speaking about it. And I remember giving my life to the Lord. And just like the next day, it was like, what just happened? You know, it's this whole, you could, even though you're in middle school, you're like, hey, something just happened in my life. You couldn't probably pinpoint it, but now looking back on it, going, yeah, you know, it was really cool that, and I wish I could remember his name, the man that led the FCA for the Middle Tennessee at that time would just come to the schools and speak a lot, and him being able to pour into them. That's how I got involved. That's how I came to faith, and then through Long Hollow being able to be discipled, probably through some of the godliest men that I've ever been around, and it not be godly men that were pastors or godly men that were paid staff. It was truck drivers and just guys that blue collar guys that own their own companies and that kind of stuff. But had the foresight to say, hey, if we're going to pour into these kids, let's pour into them, and poured every bit that they had into us. I mean, we stayed at people's houses. They opened up the houses all the time. And so, you know, my desire is that happen again. I don't know how, obviously you're a police officer, so you'd have to tell us how that's going to happen again. But some of the students being able to miss that, you know, that you don't have the open door policies that we used to have, where it was, hey, I'm spending the night at my buddy's house, and those guys are going to truly pour into you. So I hate that the community is not like that anymore because it's just so big. But back in the day, I mean, it was, all the time you were getting it. Yeah, so it was good.
So after becoming a Christian, and this is kind of based on the lesson we just had this past Sunday, you become a Christian. Did you ever have any doubts about your salvation? You're in middle school, you make this decision, and now you're going through high school and everything. Was there ever times that you sat there and had any doubts like, hey, did I really do this?
I think that in all people, if they're honest, would say that there's times that you've doubted your faith.
Yeah.
And, you know, whether you stumble or whether the Lord allows those things that go on just to see you become more and more faithful, that, you know, you don't just walk away from it. I think that if everyone's honest, well, I mean, he wrote the chapter, I write these things so that you know that you have eternal life. And I mean, if we're doing it then, I mean, if they're experiencing doubt then and we're experiencing doubt now, obviously I think that's something that we need to talk about. And people really need to be honest and say, hey, am I really a believer or not? But wrestle with it. Don't just think,
right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of our faith is that wrestling part of, hey, is this my faith? This my mom's faith? This my dad's faith? This the community's faith? This, you know, growing up in the South. So really wrestling with your salvation, I think, is extremely important. But if you are wrestling with your salvation, talk to somebody so that they can walk you through it and let you know that you're not the only person that's ever done it. And then, you know, someone that you trust that's spiritually mature, making sure that you are really saved or not saved. And I think that the Bible clearly states that you can know. So yeah, I think we've all doubted.
Yeah, I think it's kind of normal.
It is.
I think that's a tool of the devil, or call him the enemy, whatever you want to call it. I think that's a tool he uses, trying to put those doubts at us to be uncertain of ourselves.
Correct.
I mean, it even happened, you know, with Adam and Eve. He put those doubts, and, you know, they ended up eating the fruit they weren't supposed to eat. So I think that's a tool that is used quite well by the devil.
Amen. Amen. And that's why, so if anyone's listening that is doubting, please call these two guys and at least let us, you know, walk you through the spiritual steps of knowing that you can truly believe and have confidence that if you died today, you would go to heaven. Or and I think that's I mean, I think let's be fair with each other and let's be honest with each other and be open and say, hey, man, I don't know. Or if you don't know, then let's find out, because we'd love to share it with you.
I think most people have a doubt at some time, or it can be a fleeting doubt. Like you sit there and you just have this, your mind's wandering like, wait, am I really saved? And it can go away just like that. Yeah, I am. I know I am. And then sometimes it lingers for a while. And it seems like this talking to people, and the people that get saved at a really young age, it seems like sometimes they'll struggle with that when they hit the teenage and young adult years. And I don't know in your time as a minister and everything, if you've seen that also.
I think what I'm most concerned about is people sinning after they've given their life to the Lord, and then you think that now you're separated from God forever. And if you'll read the rest of the parts of the verses, that it's hey, we do have an advocate. So
Right.
so don't quit. Okay, you messed up. Hey, we're gonna mess up. And the Scripture tells us we're going to mess up. But please don't abandon your faith because you've done something that you think God can't forgive you. And really, He can forgive you, and He's already forgiven you. But let's make sure that we come back and reconcile ourselves to the Lord through repentance and don't run from Him. Hey, let's own up to it. You did it. We know we all have done it. And so just my encouragement to most people that are going through that is don't run from it. Just, hey, God's big enough to take care of it. He already took care of it through Christ on the cross. And it's already been paid, and you got Christ sitting at the right hand of the Father who makes those intercessions for you. Well, don't run from it. I mean, you do have that great advocate that's there for you.
Becoming a Christian doesn't mean you stop sinning.
Correct.
You're still going to sin, and you still have you need forgiveness and everything. But you become a Christian, and then you're trying to live a Christ-like life after that. The whole what would Jesus do, Bryce? So that's how you should be living.
Right.
And we fail at that because we're human. So you graduate high school, then you go to college. Where did you go to college?
Oh, I went to the Great Vol State.
That's amazing.
I did.
That's where my daughter's at now, finishing up her second year.
I would tell everyone to go to Vol State because it's free.
That's true. Yeah.
Now if you're going to go be a surgeon or something like that, you may not need to start your first 2 years at Vol State. But for everybody else just trying to figure it out, hey, don't go in debt.
I tell my daughter, when people ask where she goes to school, sometimes she gets embarrassed about saying she goes to Vol State, because then they go, oh, Ball State in Indiana? No, Volunteer State. And I go, just start calling it USC. And she's like, what? Yeah, University of Sumner County. I go,
I just tell everybody you're coming out of school with no debt. So who's the fool when we talk about who's going to go? And most people go into debt because you want your own apartment, you want all this, and you want that. And it's like, well, you can stay here in Vol State and get 2 years knocked out and be done with it.
Right.
And I've got a PhD. So for all of you that were on academic probation at Vol State like myself, there is hope for you in the end. Just don't wait as long as I did to go pursue a PhD.
How long were you at Vol State?
I was at...
Did it take you like 4 or 5 years to get your 2-year degree?
Oh, I'm about to embarrass my whole family. So I was at Vol State for 2 years, and I came out with 36 hours after 2 years.
And that should be what, 60?
It should be 60. Yeah. So I was a little light when I went to Western Kentucky. But when I went to Western Kentucky, they gave me my twin brother's credits. So I thought I hit the lottery. When I got up there, I went to my brother one day and I said, hey, I just went from 36 to 60. I appreciate you, because our Social Security numbers are only so many off.
Right.
And so I got his, and it took him a year to figure it out. And then I was like, oh, shoot, they got me. But I let that one ride for as long as I possibly could.
That's awesome.
But yes, I did. I started on academic probation at Western Kentucky when I transferred. The Lord got me through it. And so I actually graduated in 4.5 years by having to redo stuff at Vol State again in the summer. Yeah, so I would have to come back and take classes at Vol State.
At least, and for people listening that's not from here, we live in a county that touches Kentucky, so we get in-state tuition at Western Kentucky, which is a big bonus.
Which was even better. And that's the only reason why I went to Western Kentucky. Hey, all of you people out there that are listening that are struggling with debt, don't go into it. Because I went to Western Kentucky because it was the cheapest. So
hey, what was your major?
Business.
So when you go to college, at what point were you called into ministry?
That's why I didn't want to go to school, period. So at 17 years old, I knew I wanted to go into ministry. I knew God had called me into ministry, and I just wanted to go to seminary. Well, seminary is a graduate a graduate school. So when they said, well, you've got to go get a 4-year degree, oh man, I was like, this is brutal. And so I met with David Landreth. I said, I don't want to go to school. I don't. I mean, I love working with my hands. I love doing this. And he said, hey, the best advice I can give you is you'll get everything that you need at seminary. Go do something else. And by me doing something else, that actually allowed me to be employable on the mission field. And he was able to provide that advice for me 10 years before that I ever went on the mission field. And so I have a business degree, but then I have a PhD and all the other stuff. But that was his advice to me was, hey, don't go do it twice. So just go get your business degree. And I didn't want to hear it at the time. But I'm thankful that that's probably the best advice he ever gave me was make sure that you go get a real degree that you can be employable by so that if you do go on the mission field, that somebody can pay you. And
so you got your bachelor's, what was that, like 04, 05?
Yeah, so I graduated high school in 99, so I would have graduated 2002.
Okay.
Yeah, so 2002.
Did you go straight to seminary after getting your...
I did. And my first class that I took at seminary, I got a D-. So I brought that bad study habits with me to seminary.
Where did you go to seminary?
I went to Southern. And so I said, I'm in a whole new world over here. And so I remember getting my first paper, and I said, I can't write. So we had to fix that as well. Yeah, I had to fix that.
So at this time, going to Western, then going to Southern Seminary, which is also in Kentucky.
Correct.
What were you doing? Were you working? Were you...
So I went at 20 years old, I went to work for First Baptist Ridgetop, and I was their associate pastor at 2000. And which is kind of interesting because that's really when in 2000, ESPN, the magazine, ran an article about the island of American Samoa. And I read articles from the back to the front because they're smaller, and I didn't want to spend 10 minutes reading an article in a magazine. So I would always take a magazine and I'd flip it over backwards and I'd start reading from the back to the front because it was just shorter articles. And that article was about American Samoa, and it was about football being played there. And at that point, they had the highest suicide rate in the world for nations under 200,000. And then alcoholism was big, as well as teen pregnancy. And because they love football, I said, hey, Lord, if you ever send me somewhere, send me here. Just joking in 2000. And so after I graduated, I kept this burden that God kept putting, hey, American Samoa. And then I go off to seminary, and I was like, hey, does anybody know where American Samoa is? And they're like, no. And then I said, well, I'd like to go there because I think that's where the Lord's calling me. And every year it'd be nothing and nothing and nothing. And then last year of seminary, I sent an email to the North American Mission Board because that's American Samoa is a U.S. territory, even though it's in the South Pacific. And they said, hey, they're part of the Hawaii Baptist Convention. And so I sent the Hawaii Baptist Convention a message that said, hey, I believe God's calling me to American Samoa. They don't know me for anything. And they said, well, the only thing that they need down there is teachers. And I said, yeah, that's not happening. And so I kept the email that December. And in January, a friend of mine called and he said, I've got a teacher at our little private Christian school that's going on maternity leave. I will provide you a full salary and I will provide you a homeroom mom. I just got to have someone that has a degree so that we're legal. But if you'll come in here and you'll teach these second graders, the mom will do all the grade work and all that kind of stuff. And so I went and did it because I needed to get money while I was working at First Baptist and in graduate school. And then in that March that year, that email popped back up and it said, hey, American Samoa needs a second grade teacher that teaches Abeka. And I went back to I remember, and I kind of get emotional over this, I remember going back to my room going, I'm a second grade teacher with every piece of curriculum that I need from the Abeka curriculum to go teach kids in Samoa. And so I went and told my parents, I said, hey, I think I found a way that I'm going to Samoa. And I sent a letter to the Hawaii Baptist Convention, and I sent my resume, and I said, hey, if you know how to get me here, I'd love to go. And he said, well, that's kind of funny. Go ahead and send me your resume. I'm going tonight on a plane. And he was flying down there, and he handed my resume to Elise Taufau, who was over all the Baptist churches in the South Pacific. And Elise called me, and he said, hey, come on down. And I said, man, I don't know what I'm getting into. He said, it's okay. And there was a lady up here in East Tennessee that had just come back. She had played softball at Tennessee Tech, and she had just moved back from Samoa. And she said, hey, I'll tell you anything you need to know. And so I went and met with her in Cookeville, Tennessee, and she went over everything with me. And I called him. I said, hey, I'm coming. And my parents were like, hey, cool. I mean, that's cool. Didn't know what I was doing. But I said, my only stipulation is the first year I'll teach for you, but the second year you got to train me to be a pastor. And he said, cool. And so I got there that year in July. August we started school, and then September we started the first English Baptist church in Samoa. So it didn't even take a year. He was already ready. He said, watch this, I'm going to teach you. I'm going to teach you while you're on, right when you're here, I'm going to teach you as you go. And so after, fast forward 7.5 years, I was able to pastor Taifuna Baptist Church, ended up being the vice principal of Samoa Baptist Academy. But then we were able to start 8 to 10 churches, and those were Samoan churches in Alaska, Hawaii, Southern California, American Samoa, Western Samoa, and New Zealand. And so the little small town of Hendersonville, Tennessee, which we used to call Shackle Island, not Hendersonville because we didn't want to be anything to do with Hendersonville because Hendersonville High School was our enemy. So we were Shackle Island. So, God can call anybody academic probation, not wanting to go to school. But I think if you're willing and God's called you and you're willing to take that step of obedience, God's going to show you amazing things. And I remember sitting in New Zealand one time looking at a map going, Lord, how in the world are you going to do this? And the thing was always just be faithful. He was like, I got everything else controlled. I just need you to be faithful to what I've called you to do. And so I got to see some pretty amazing things and be with some of the greatest people in the world. I love Samoan people, still talk to Samoan people. I saw a Samoan person the other day at Bojangles, and I went and spoke Samoan to him and whatever. He's like, oh, no. And so I was like, hey, you guys from here? He's like, yeah, we're from Nashville. And so even just being able to see Samoan people around here now, just still that passion still for Samoan people. No, God doesn't want to call me to Samoa, so everybody listening thinks that, hey, when you're going back, I'm not going back. But that passion's still there to see and to see them be able to make a great movement that they had. And that's what my PhD is on. My PhD is on the history of Christianity in Samoa. And at that time in the late 1800s, when the military was first taking over American Samoa because Germany went with Western Samoa, I still have the paper where it says the greatest mission sending agency in the world in the late 1800s was the Samoan people. And there's artifacts in Chile from Samoans in the 1800s taking the gospel from paddling. And we're not talking about like boats, airplanes. We're talking about the 1800s paddling across the Pacific Ocean, being able to take the gospel. And it's really some of the coolest stories of people that were so faithful to the Lord that just got in a boat and said, I may never make it back. And so just being able to be a part of a little bit of their history has been really incredible because God used them to do amazing things in the Pacific.
That's amazing. Hasn't there been a big push of like Mormonism also in that area?
So Mormonism has taught the Polynesian people that they're one of the lost tribes. And so they're one of the lost tribes of Israel. And so basically the Mormon church has looked at it and said, we can't get a hold of any country. And the only country that we really can get a hold of would be some of the Pacific Islands. So it's very strong. Mormonism is very strong in all the Pacific Islands, not just Samoa, Tonga, and all the other ones, but their temples are there. So that's where they train all the missionaries, is actually in Western Samoa, or the independent nation of Samoa. Yeah, so it's big. They're in Hawaii. Hawaii has Brigham Young Hawaii, University of Brigham Young at Hawaii. And so, yeah, it's been a big part of the cultural movement in the Polynesian is the Mormon Church. Yep.
At what point in this graduating high school, going to seminary, graduating college, going to seminary, going to American Samoa, when did you meet your wife in all this?
So the guy that helped me start the church in Samoa moved back the same time that I did, and he was our worship leader. And so we got really close, he and I did, but he ended up marrying a lady that would come down, a Korean lady that would come down and teach English to Samoans and how to make the SAT, ACT, how to pass it. Well, he starts dating her while she's there, and then he moves off to Hawaii, and then they get married in Hawaii. And they say, hey, Brian, can you be one of the groomsmen in the wedding? And I said, yeah, absolutely. And so we only had a flight that would leave Samoa, and it's still 2 flights a week. So you can get out on Thursday, you can get out on Sunday. Other than that, you can't get out. You're kind of stuck in those days. So the wedding was on Saturday, and I flew up on Thursday night, got there Friday, and they partnered me with Daisy. So Daisy, me and her escorted each other, and I don't remember any of it. So you can ask me all you want to about that wedding, and I don't remember her even being there, other than the fact that she tells everybody that I'm the quietest person that she's ever met. I was like, well, we obviously did not talk to each other at all at this wedding, because you think I don't remember you and you don't remember me that well. And then I got back on a flight, and then she got back on her flight because she was a dentist in Alaska. And I went back going, hey, I'm going back home. I'm going back to Samoa. I'm not looking for a wife, not looking for anything. And then in July of the year that I left, I sent all of my supporters a thank you. And I don't know, I still to this day have no idea how she ended up being on that email, because she wasn't one of my supporters. Like she didn't financially send, she didn't pray or whatever. I only knew her from that wedding. And so somehow she ended up on that. And I remember she replying, and I don't know what sparked it, but it sparked it. And I sent her a message because we had to pay for minutes. So every dollar that, it was $1, like basically $1 a minute, to be able to call each other. And then in Alaska was worse. And so we would have to email each other. And so it was like old school, hey, I'm going to email you 5 pages of what I'm thinking, all that kind of stuff, asking her questions. And then it'd take her, 3, 4, 5 days to respond to you. And then you got the same sheet. And so it was this big, long, massive writing each other. And then when I left, she met me down I flew through her hometown, and she met me down there. And we went on our first date on the way back, from me coming back. And I remember going, man, I kind of actually like this girl. I mean, she's like legit. She's not weird. At that point, I'm, almost mid-30s, I guess. And I remember calling my twin brother and going, hey, I'm not going to come home. And I was on my way home. I said, I'm going to have to swap my ticket. And me being a missionary, I still think he paid for it. He doesn't think he paid for it. I think he paid for me to swap my ticket. And I just flew straight to Alaska. And I had to go stay with a bunch of families just to be up there to get to know her a little bit more. And then we started dating long distance. And then long story short, me having my terrible grades all the way back. So all you students or whoever's listening, what you do in your 20s, be careful. I got denied 6 because I came back to pursue a PhD in leadership. And then I was going to go back to Samoa. And so I came up here and I got denied by all 6. And all 6 of them were because my grades were so bad in my undergrad that you had to have I can't remember what you had to have. And I couldn't meet any of it because my grades were so bad at Ball State. And so I still have the letters from when I was declined and all that. And so I've saved it for my daughter so that she knows that, hey, if you mess up, you can still redo it. And so I have all the letters of me being denied into graduate schools for PhD. And of course now I've got the PhD paperwork beside it. But it was like, hey, you make some mistakes, you can still roll your sleeves up and fix it. It's going to be hard, be hard work, but I still have those letters they're saved in a file to be able to give her. But yeah, it's been interesting meeting Daisy, and she flew when I went back to Hawaii after being declined by everybody. She flew down there, got a job in Hawaii, and we dated for about 3.5 years, and then we got married in Hawaii, where she was born. She was born in Hawaii, and then our daughter that's 6 now was also born in Hawaii.
That is so cool. So y'all meet it. That is not when you first started that story and talked about, he was dating this girl, and then he leaves. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is who you started dating. Yes, I thought that's where it was going to go. No. Went a totally different direction.
And she's really the only person that I've ever dated as an adult. Yeah. but I wasn't trying to date anybody. You're living on a mission.
How did she end up in Alaska as a dentist?
So she graduated from dental school, and then she didn't want to own her own practice, and so she's like, hey, what in the world am I supposed to do? And she said a lady came in and said, well, why don't you just join one of the military? The military is always looking for medical and looking for dentists. And Daisy went and joined the Army. So she just said, hey, I'm going to go into the recruiting place. And it was Army, Navy, Air Force. And her thing was whoever grabs me first is who I'm signing up to join. And Army grabbed her first. And so she went Army, stationed in Okinawa. And then when she got out, she still didn't want to own her own practice. So she went and worked for Native Health, working with Alaskan Native people in Bethel, Alaska. And so that's how she ended up in Alaska.
So did she grow up in a Christian home? Or?
She didn't, but her dad led their family to follow the Lord when she was young. And then her dad passed away when she was really young. So, but her dad, she didn't, when she was first born, she didn't, but then her dad led the family into it. And it's pretty cool. Once again, we always go back to, or at least I go back to, you never know how much influence you have on anybody. But the person that led Daisy to the Lord was one of her dad's coworkers, and when he came to do some work on the house, and he talked to her about the Lord then. And so for everybody that doesn't think that you can have an impact on people, all the people that have really impacted my life and impacted Daisy's life have been non-paid staff people. So just remember that we all have our responsibility, and we're all called to be missionaries. And whether you're here in Sumner County or you're here somewhere else, there's still people that you got to tell people about Jesus. And that's really what excites me about this church and hearing about that is there's so many people that are doing this outside the church that we don't even know about, that are doing the Bible studies, that are doing the leading people to the Lord. And it's exciting to hear all the stories that are going on.
So what was that life like as you're a missionary, you're doing mission work, and then you get married, and now your wife's with you, and you're doing the mission work. How was that? How was that for her?
Well, she worked so much, and we joke about this. She worked so much in Native Hawaiian health that when I was gone, she was like, whatever. It was, you don't have kids, so you're kind of like, okay, I'm traveling to Japan, I'm traveling to Korea, I'm traveling to New Zealand, to Samoa, all these different places, and she just taking care of the home front. And when I'd fly back, she'd be ready. I'd like to say that it was with open arms, hugging, and all that kind of stuff, but I'm sure I got on her nerves when I got back from being gone for a couple of weeks.
At some point, you said Brandon joined you?
My brother did. My brother joined me on the mission field. We were how we looked at ministry was being non-Samoan, starting a church. What's the greatest and the fastest way for us to be able to get into a community that really truly is communal? So if you're not part of the communal part of it, you don't bring anything to the village. What can we possibly do? And so our prayer was, all right, Lord, tell us what we can do personally where we can infiltrate and actually have some kind of impact, because obviously we don't look like the people, we don't know the culture, we don't speak the language, and that kind of stuff. And the prayer was, Lord, just show us what it was. And it was through athletics. And me loving it, going back to that story in the article in ESPN, the magazine, but you don't look like them. They're birthed at 12 pounds, and I was birthed at 3 pounds. And so the size difference in Polynesian people and me was kind of different. So there's nothing I possibly could teach these giant warriors that are literally warriors. What are you going to teach us? And so we had to go backwards. And so it was we started filming the games. They hadn't had the games filmed. And so we started filming the games, breaking the films down, and then giving it to the coaches. And then slowly and surely, then they invited you to coach, and then they invited you to be a part of it. Well, I couldn't do it, so Brandon, after me being down there for 4 years and us spending probably $3,500 a year in phone bills, because I'm like, Brandon, you got to get these kids up here. You got to get these kids up here. Well, he finally moves down. And then that's really when the athletics took off, because he ended up rewriting all of the SAT, ACT curriculum to get the kids in. And then he figured out some formula that all you have to answer is so many questions on the math part, and don't answer anymore. And then, so he fixed their GPAs, he fixed their SAT, ACT scores so that they could get the scholarships in. And then from there, he ended up having hundreds of kids go to the United States on full athletic scholarships. And then it was really one of those things that, I mean, God has to do it or not.
I'm laughing because Brian's daughter Nora's in here and she's moving her stuff, and every time she moves something, Brian's like, "Will you stop?" And I'm just like, "I don't care. I think it's fun."
She'll slam the door here in a second,
Yeah.
not knowing anything.
Yeah, our last guest was snapping every time he talked, so it's okay. So don't worry about any of that noise. I mean, that's really cool. You got to spend that time together, though, that you and him did. And then you said your sister was helping y'all
raise the money, pay for the plane tickets, making sure that we had what we needed. I remember going to the dentist, I think, one time in the 7.5 years that I'm going, and then what led to you marrying a dentist?
That's what.
Hey, one of our first dates was, she was like, "Hey, let me at least take care of your teeth," and it was
is such a weird. Hey,
three and a half hours later.
Before we have a first kiss, let me see what I'm working with here.
Yeah, I also had to send her a picture because she forgot what I look like.
So did you send her your picture?
I did. I'm the handsomer. I'm more handsome than Brandon is, but I sent her my picture. She legit. I mean, Daisy is super sweet, super nice, but I mean, she's just kind of blunt. I really don't remember.
Let me see your teeth.
Yeah,
Send me your picture.
I don't remember what you look like. Oh, now let me see you smile.
That's great.
We're going to edit all this one out right now.
Nope. Yeah, and I think a lot of people don't realize that when you do go into the mission field, you know, say you were to take off, go to the mission field again, you have to get your funding for that.
You do.
To be able to provide whatever salary you're going to have. It's the same way with people that go to work for FCA. They're having to get their funding to provide that, and that's a struggle.
It was a struggle for us because we could only come home once a year. And so we would come home once a year, and it was get in front of as many people as you possibly could. And then whatever you raised is what you raised. And so, but by working on the mission field too, it's not like we just did that. I mean, you were
getting paid by the school you were teaching.
Well, I wasn't, my job was the vice principal of the school, which provided my housing. And then, some of the food that we ate was provided by the school being able to just do lunch. And so the other stuff was more about, hey, if we got to go to New Zealand, we need some money to go to New Zealand.
So you're not living a luxurious life as you're out on the mission field.
You guys that know my brother will have to ask him about the first time he ever met a Norwegian rat. And Samoa has a rat problem because of all the container ships. And they have what's called the Norwegian rat, and it looks just like a rat, but its tail is like double the size of its body. And so my brother's first night ever in Samoa, we had those lever windows that if it's hot, you know, you open them more. If it's raining, you close them so you don't get wet. So one of the rats got pinned inside of the window, and it's screaming, and he's like, "What in the world is going on?" And then the first time that
we didn't have these on Shackle Island.
No, we did not. And then the roaches down there are so big that they fly. I don't know if you've ever got to experience when the roaches get fully mature or whatever, that they fly around. And so I remember the first time that my brother had a roach land on him as well. They no one knows that they fly and then they stick to you. And he's like, can't get the thing off of it. But there's been some really good people that went with us to Samoa from Sumner County. So it wasn't just, we may have been the first ones, but we had Katie Smith that was our childhood friend. She thought she was going IMB and then wasn't able to go. And then Ben Bratcher that went to First Baptist, that's our same age, went. And then there's just been so many more that have come down from Sumner County that we're able to be blessed by. And so if they're listening to this, I just want to, thank you for them being able to make our life a whole lot easier because it is difficult in some phases. But being able to have my twin brother probably was the easiest. I mean, somebody that's just like you, kind of, that does the same things, acts the same way, and enjoys the same kind of things that you do. So it was pretty cool.
Was there a lot of spam being eaten?
There was a ton of spam, and I remember the first time that I ate raw fish. I thought I was going to die. I was like, this is not possible. We never had raw fish out of Old Hickory Lake, and out of the Pacific, it's only coming out raw. And so it took a while, but now I can eat sashimi any day of the week. And then, of course, now everybody has sushi. It's like the new craze up here. But it's
Are you a fan of
good.
spam though?
I like spam.
I do too. Foster,
but we eat,
fan of spam.
But we eat spam with Daisy makes it's spam with rice and then wrapped in seaweed, and so it's a little bit. It's kind of the Hawaiian sandwich, so it's good.
So you have your time there. What brought you back to Tennessee, and when did that happen?
Well, so the first time I came back was to pursue a PhD, and obviously didn't get in. I've already told you that story. Then went back to Hawaii. So I was in Hawaii. I was in Samoa for 7.5 years, and then I was in Hawaii for 18, 19 years. I can't remember. No, 10 years, 18, 19 total. And then we came back. It was just time for us to come back and take care of some family things that were going on. Everybody was starting to have kids, and so being a triplet, we could split things up. Some people can't, but we were able to split stuff up and take care of those responsibilities. So being able to be back for the last couple of years has been a true blessing, being able to take care of those family needs that we came back for.
I know your wife went in the Army, ended up in Alaska. Where is she from, though?
So she was born in Hawaii. She's Korean, but she was born in Hawaii and then raised in Southern California.
So how does she like Tennessee?
She absolutely loves the people that she works with, and she loves the people she serves with here at the church. Yeah. Now, I think if we're honest, if we were to say, hey, we're going somewhere that doesn't have Southern food, we'd be like, hey, man, it's kind of odd. So I think the food choices here are a little bit different than that. But there's even a Korean school. Our daughter goes to Korean school on Saturdays.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, so there's more and more of those opportunities that we didn't have.
There's so much in this area now because of how much it's growing.
Right.
Used to, like, you go to Atlanta, nobody's from Atlanta. You go to Nashville now, nobody's from Nashville anymore. They all move here from other places. One of the questions I wanted to ask you, because this is a men's ministry podcast, did you ever have a rite of passage, like going from being a boy into manhood, or was it just like, I'd screw up? Because most cultures, I don't know, and being in the Samoan culture, is there like a rite of passage for them in the Samoan, Hawaiian culture where they do a rite of passage? You hit this certain age, and now you're considered a man.
I think let me address the Samoan culture first. I think the Samoan culture, because everyone has their role, which is completely different than the culture that we live in, where it's so independent. Each family has their own thing. We build fences in backyards so that we don't have to see anybody and that kind of stuff. With Samoan culture, the village, everybody has a role pretty much from the time that you can walk, and so you learn, whether it to be a farmer, a fisherman, somebody being able to build things. I think this is a little bit different because you get a true responsibility that how you got to put up to help this village. And so their rite of passage probably happens way before ours does with the responsibility part. And which was cool to see a different culture of, even when Paul tells the church, hey, if you don't work, you don't eat. It's kind of the same thing in Samoan culture. If you're not helping this village, you're not going to get anything out of it. We're all in this together. I think for me, a rite of passage, I think when you first get out on your own is, and that's a whole lot longer here than it is anywhere else. I mean, so even though I'm a triplet, even though, you kind of do your own thing, it's not till you go get your first job, you go live. And for me, which was crazy, me and my brother were talking about this before I went to Samoa. Me and my brother and I went to Samoa in 2006, so I was 25. Me and my brother had never been apart from each other for more than a week. And so from 0 to 25, me and my brother had always been somewhere within, for a week. And then, of course, then the Lord tells you it's time for you to move. And so that's probably when you look at it the first time where you say, hey, I'm completely independent and completely dependent on you, God. I mean, you move me way across the world. And so even it being in Samoa, getting dengue fever, where they think they're going to have to give you a blood transfusion, or they think that the military is going to have to fly you off the island to go to Hawaii because they think you and another missionary are going to die. Having to take the pills for elephantitis and never being that sick in my life. I think those are the type of things when you finally look at it and you go, okay, Lord, I'm completely dependent on you, and hey, this is what it is. You called me to do it. Well, you're responsible for my life. And I'd probably say that for me was it, where you had no crutch anymore. It was, hey, Lord, we're out here together. You're all I got, and the church is all I got out here, and so I'm completely dependent on you. But I think there was, for people that are struggling like that, there's also a freedom in it. I think there's a freedom in it, knowing that if God's called you to do it, He's going to prepare you to get it done, and He's there, right there beside you. So it's this freedom, but there's also this joy and sense of adventure. Somebody asked me one time, they said, what's it like to be a missionary? I said, it's the coolest thing in the world, because every day is something different. And every day is something different, because you have no idea what the Lord called you to do that day.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, Lord, you're supposed to be putting me in front of who you want me to be in front of. And if it's the guy walking down the road that's trying to lasso his horse because his horse got out of the farm in Samoa, that's who I'm supposed to be in contact with. So there's this kind of this freedom and this sense of adventure that, hey, Lord, wake me up. And if you wake me up today, then it's going to be the coolest thing ever, because I have no idea what your expectation for today is, and I don't know what you're going to lead me to do, but so be it. Let's do it. And I think it was that's probably my rite of passage, I think, was where he just like, hey, you're going to be dependent on me. If not, go home. And I didn't want to go home. So.
Earlier you said you went over there, you were teaching second grade.
Yes.
And you had no intention of being in the education system, being a teacher. Correct. Or anything. But then when you came back to America, weren't you a teacher?
Yes.
So
remember, I never wanted to be a teacher. My buddy hired me to be a teacher, and I just needed a paycheck. That led me to be able to go teach second grade in Samoa with the ABECA program that I'd never even heard about. And then from there, went for the next 7 years. I ended up being the vice principal. But if we didn't get the missionary for that class, well, I had to teach it. So this year may be algebra. And I'm staying up all night to study algebra because these kids are dependent on me teaching them algebra. The next year was history, or it may have been fourth grade. I remember having to teach fourth grade. I remember having to teach history. I remember having to teach science. So it was one of those things that, hey, God's called you to do it. Now let's just get it done, And by, I don't know if you call it flexible or not. It was really more of, hey, it's got to get done, so let's do it. I mean, why complain about it? The kids got to learn these kind of things.
What's the ABECA program?
So ABECA is a curriculum for Christian schools, and it's out of Pensacola, Florida. Okay. Pensacola Christian College, the people that started all that, developed ABECA. And it's a curriculum that goes, I think, K-3 all the way to high school. And we redid our curriculum because we stopped at 8th grade, where if a kid didn't learn anything else as they went into public schools, if they didn't learn anything else, they could pass the ACT and SAT as an 8th grader. And so that's where the Katie Smiths of the world, who have master's degrees in education, we were pouring into a third world country that English was not their first language, and they were able to at least pass the college curriculum. And so it was pretty cool of what the Lord was providing the students there.
Yeah. Foster's done a lot of mission work. I have not, I'm just curious if you have any takeaways from hearing this. I know you've gone to Guatemala quite a bit. You've gone to Alaska and done some mission work there. What are your feelings towards this and questions about mission work?
Yeah, no, I mean, just what Brian said. being able to wake up each day and just a new day and really a new calling for the day is the conclusion I came to, especially when we were living in Alaska a month at a time. And it's fun. It's a blast. And your mindset is so focused on serving the Lord through serving the people. It's not a burden. And even Brian over there in Samoa, where they had these big rats and I mean, the Lord gives you what you need, and you're just grateful to be there and be able to serve Him. So, yes, it may look rough to some people, but when you're called there, it's just you're grateful to be there. So, I'm just kind of listening, soaking it all in. For sure.
I know I've heard you talked about the other day when we were talking, and I'm sure the difference in culture and adapting to that. And you're talking about Guatemala, like, hey, we're going to go this place at this time, and it's like 45 minutes past that time, and nobody's left yet. And the difference in like the community in Samoa, how it's a very communal area. Everybody's part of each other and working with each other, and then you come back here and everybody has their fences up. How hard was that transition for you living there? How long did it take for you to really kind of understand that? And for you, going to these places, a month at a time or a week at a time, how is that transition?
I think transitioning into a communal place, you got to show that you're bringing something to the table.
You have to earn their trust too, right?
You do. The great thing about Samoan people is if you gain their trust, I mean, they'll serve you better than you could ever serve them. Now you're not going into it like that, but you're going into it basically to be a part of the family. And so you got to bring something to the table. And for us, it was, hey, Lord, whatever it is that we can bring to the table. And I remember one year coaching soccer and going, I have no idea how to coach soccer. And our team getting the most goals scored on it in the season, and the fastest goal was scored on us. But it was, hey, you poured into my kids. They didn't care. I mean, it was just, hey, I don't care. I don't care. Y'all were terrible, and we were terrible. I don't think we won a game. But it was, hey, if you're willing to roll your sleeves up and be a part of this, then roll your sleeves up and be a part of it. But don't come in here telling us how to do this and how to do this. And I mean, our culture has been here for way more than you can think. So if anybody ever gets into that situation, find out what they need. I mean,
that's probably true. Anything like if somebody
is.
comes in your house here and starts trying to tell you how to do things, it's not going to go over too well.
But I think that's probably the number one thing that we hear from missionaries or that we hear from cultures is we bring our American part
ideology,
yes, and everything, and it's like they don't care. At the end of the day, remember, I'm going to be here longer than you're going to be here. So, the biggest thing for anybody to me is just ask them what their needs are. I remember even moving to Hawaii, and I would go. I tried to coach football in Hawaii, and it was always, they were so graceful, and gracious to talk to me. But it was, you never got a call back. I mean, legit, never got a call back. And so every couple of months, I go visit the head coach. I'm like, hey, is there anything you need? No, we're good. No, we're good. And I'd just write my name and I'd write my number on the board. I'm like, hey, if you ever need anything, just let me know. And so nothing. And then after 2 years, I finally got to wash the clothes. I remember being able to wash the clothes of the thing. And then I was like, hey, let me just video for you guys. And then they let me video. And of course, I'm not telling them that we've sent over 100 Samoan kids to everywhere. I'm not telling them that we were at the Super Bowl, that year before, where one of our players in Samoa went to the Super Bowl and won it with the Eagles. I'm not telling them any of that because we're not playing that game. We're just playing the game of how can I serve you? And it took 2 years. And then when he moved to Utah, the head coach moved to Utah, and he'd be gone for 2 years. He sent me a random text message and said, hey, can you come bring all of your football stuff to Utah? And so it's those lifelong things that if we'll just go serve, which is what the Lord has asked us to do, if we'll just go serve, I think the Lord can do anything through First Baptist. But if we go with our own misconceived notions of whatever it is, it's like, hey, this is what we're bringing to you. They don't care. They just don't. And I wouldn't care either. I mean, like you just said, I mean, how many people come to Nashville every day and they're like, hey, we're bringing this, and everybody around here is going, but we don't want that. Yeah. Well, just remember that that's the same way that the people feel when we go on mission trips. It's what are we there to serve them? If we can go with that attitude that Christ said, hey, just go serve, I think we'll be good. I do.
You know, being in these different cultures, and since this is a men's ministry podcast, what have you seen as the importance of having a strong Christian man in the home?
I think being a father, you know, and I've only been a dad for 6 years. For all the dads out there that are struggling with how much am I supposed to lead, how much am I to do that? Well, you're supposed to lead like Christ led, and it's pretty simple. Is you're supposed to love your wife, and you're supposed to love your kid, and you're supposed to be the person that God has called you to be, regardless of what culture says. And I think right now is where there's this fight between a lot of dads, and it's like, well, what am I supposed to do in here? Hey, just be a dad that loves the Lord and let Him guide you. But not only that is we got to have those dads return back into our communities. You know, can you also be the dad for the kid across the street that probably doesn't have a spiritual mentor in their life? And that's what we got 30 years ago, and all of us are living examples of some man poured into you probably at some point. And for us to sit on the sidelines, I think is going to be a detriment to our community, because there are young boys running around everywhere going, if somebody would just say something, if somebody would just help me, it would change my life. And I think we take a step back and go, but yeah, culture doesn't allow us to do that. And I think those boys are screaming out right now, I don't care what the culture says. If you'll pour into me, you'll see my life changed. And so for us to be able to model it at home, but then also be able to model that to our community, I think is going to be strong as we move into the next decade of these cultural wars that are moving into the South. We're not used to it. But if you've ever lived on the other side where there's zero Christianity, that it is. If we'll return back to that, I think we'll see many, many more men raised up from boys to men that we don't have to go have these, all right, now let me teach you what it's like to be a man. I don't have to teach you what it's like to be a man. You know, just watch me. That's one of my favorite things that Paul says is just watch
me as I emulate Christ.
Yeah, just watch me. You know, so guys, if we'll just emulate Christ, the boys are already looking. I mean, so we don't have to teach some sermon. We don't have to teach some curriculum. It's just spend the time and spend the effort and let them watch you, and let them watch you make a mistake. You know, and I think that's we want to, everything wants to be behind closed doors. Well, some things aren't supposed to be behind closed doors. You know, and that was what I learned probably the most in Samoa, was those boys knew how to act like men, because the men in the community, they saw them on a day-to-day basis. And there was no hiding from your uncle. There was no hiding from your grandparents. There was no hiding from your dad. It was, they're all in front of me. There was never a time when they didn't have men in front of them. And if we can bring that back that we had, I mean, we had men doing everything. I mean, volunteering sports teams, volunteering, even the farmers, even allowing us to work. I mean, and I remember I got to the point, I think, I was like, I'm never getting out of bed for $10 an hour. And I remember being 15 going, nobody makes $10 an hour. But the farmers didn't care. They just wanted you to be around them and paint the fence and that. And they were looking to pour their life into you. And I think that if we'll just return back to what we had 30 years ago, not in a negative way, but how we were brought up, and, you know, men were actually investing in people's lives.
Yeah. You have a very diverse experience in your time as a minister, missionary, and this everything. Is there anything or any significant impact you see when you get the man of the house involved and the effect that has on the whole family?
Yeah, I think we're called to be spiritual leaders. I
feel like for years it ended up being men were allowing the wife to do that. And that's fine. I think the wife should be. I think you should do it together.
Right.
But I also think there's a huge significance, especially for young, you know, like Bo, seeing Foster being the spiritual leader of his house, and and your home and all that. And I think it's so significant when they see the dad coming to church.
I think it's even a step further than that, because we all know that. I mean, you've got kids. Is your kids are going to look at you at some point and go, "Dad, you don't know anything." Dad doesn't know anything.
Oh, it happens all the time.
I mean, Dad,
especially when they become teenagers.
Correct. Dad doesn't know anything. But you know what? My dad's best friend does. And my dad's best friend is also pouring into me.
Yeah.
And then I think, and I'm just going to say this, I'm going to call him out. I think that's one of the coolest things that we get to see around here is Pastor Bruce and Pastor Bruce that are actually around the kids. They're not in a ivory tower where they come down, they preach, and then they go back. I mean, they're actually interacting with. I mean, how many pastors are on Wednesday nights serving ice cream?
You and I have talked about this.
I mean,
and
it's crazy.
The impact that they have, and we talked about in the last episode of how many people they're able to remember and know in a church. This is a large church, and it doesn't feel like it all the time. You know, it is important getting your connect groups and everything, but even with the Bruces and stuff, it's how do they keep in line all these different people they're talking to at a church's size?
So I think it's not only for dads to be dads that we've been called to, but it's also for dads to have godly friends that are around them as well, and for the kids to see. Now, I'm not saying, hey, let your kid go spend the night with every guy that we obviously our culture is not going that way anymore. I mean, most people's kids aren't spending the night with anybody. But if so-and-so's dad is also hanging out with other godly men and they're hanging out with each other, well, they know what godly friends should be looking like. Hey, if my buddies are over here doing this, well, dad doesn't have buddies that do that. You know, I mean, so I think that there's this pushback really that students are looking for, and that is, it's not just my dad, it's all the other men at this church that I can learn from, or it's some men being able to hire teenagers here that, hey, I mean, the best thing that we can start doing now is hiring these teenagers with godly men that own the business, you know, because now...
You know, Foster does that. He had my son for a while, and, and I think that's so impactful.
I agree.
You know,
I agree.
Because... like, say, even like the working doesn't last really long, it still has an impact. Correct. And it might take 5-10 years down the road for them to realize that, but it's there. I guess that goes in the whole, you're planting the seed.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't matter who plants and who waters it. Hey, let's all give God the glory, but let's all do this together. You know, I mean, so if they've got, we all should be having spiritual friends that should be able to do it.
Couple more we're going to get through. Some of these we've kind of hit on, and you've answered this throughout the other discussion. I want to ask you, I've been in your office. You have a lot of books stacked up in there. So other than the Bible, is there a favorite book that you have?
Yeah, but I mean, they're Psalm books. So it's going to...
Are they really?
Yeah.
I mean, that's interesting.
It's being able to go back and look at these missionaries that were able to... And what I love about... We always talk about, hey, go into a culture, preach the gospel, and let them take care of it. But a lot of times we go in there, present the gospel, and then we stay. But what was cool about the Psalm 1 really journey, I guess, for that was the first gospel was presented, but they left other Polynesians there. And so when they left the other Polynesians there, they were able to teach their people. So it wasn't like Brian's going to Samoa and I'm going to teach them about Jesus, and then I'm going to stay for the next 50 years and teach them. No, it was, hey, I'm going to go grab these Polynesian people from Tonga, or I'm going to grab them from Tahiti. They're going to go on a big, massive boat ride with me. And then when I'm able to present the gospel to them and the people that give their life to the Lord, well, then I'm going to leave 6 of you with them. And then they were able to then gather it. So I think that was what was so cool for me, was being the outsider trying to bring the gospel to some parts of Samoa, going, I mean, this has already been done before, but it was already done by their people. So now we just got to be able to bring it back. So a lot of the books on my shelf, the top part are the missionary journeys of the first Polynesian people that took the gospel and what they were willing to do.
And that's your PhDs.
That is right.
That seems like a very rare PhD to have.
Yes, and so I did have the blessing to be able to study the impact of Christianity, not through conversion, but what did it do to the entire culture, and being able to shape the culture.
I found that extremely interesting. So what is your favorite passage from the Bible?
My favorite passage is, not to us, O Lord, not to us, but to your name be the glory for your love and your faithfulness. And I remember at one point in our ministry in Samoa, people were starting to call and people were starting to ask, and they were starting to write stories and that kind of stuff. And I remember David Landreth teaching us, he said, you can either give God the glory or you can take it. And I remember that at that point in our ministry, that him being able to teach that, it goes back to having godly people around all of our sons and daughters, then that verse is my life verse, really, and that's don't steal God's glory. I mean, it's not, Lord, we didn't do anything for this. I mean, let's be real. I didn't do anything in Samoa. I didn't do anything in New Zealand. I got to be a part of what God was already doing. But for me to take credit of it, it could have been the worst part of the ministry. And so I've got it tattooed on my leg in Samoan just to remind me that hey,
you would fit in at my kids' school. So my kids go to Christian school. They go to Davidson Academy, and that is the passage that is all over the school. Yeah. It's engraved in. They have like the front gates there, and that's engraved into the gate there.
Yep.
So
that's my favorite.
If you ever
verse.
need to get back into education,
yes, that is my favorite verse. Is not to us, O Lord.
That's great.
We didn't do anything.
Has anyone ever been a mentor to you, and what impact did that have on you? And have you ever mentored anybody? And what impact did that have on you also?
There was a man named Steve that was one of probably the big influential people in my life growing up, Christianity, because he poured his life. I mean, he fixed houses. His sons were in our youth group with us, same age, and then he just had us. I mean, read Bible with us all the time, talked about the Bible with us. That's probably the earliest one. That it was, but probably the most influential was Elise Tafau, the Samoan pastor that basically said, you're going to learn by doing it. And, we were supposed to start the church a year when I got there, and we started it a month later. And he said, hey, we'll learn as we go. I'll teach you. If you're willing to learn, I'll teach you how to do it. So Elise Tafau is probably the biggest mentor.
Do you still have contact with him?
I do. I was actually his wife, Lucy Tafau, who we used to tell Nora was the grandmother in Moana. She looks just like her, acts just like her.
I was wondering if you're going to bring up Moana, as much as we're talking about American Samoa.
Which was crazy about in the Pacific, who got to claim Moana, because they did it on purpose, that she wasn't from a specific Polynesian group, but they put everybody in there together. But that's basically like the island that I lived on. Motunui was basically kind of like Samoa, the village setting. But that's probably the biggest mentor that I've ever had. And
did they know it?
Oh yeah.
Because sometimes you can have somebody that's being a mentor to you and they have no clue.
No, I think that because I lived with them.
Okay.
We lived with them on the same compound. With that, they've by far had the most influence on it. And the only person, my mom has I gave my mom my PhD, my diploma. I gave it to her because she could have done the same thing. My mom's extremely sharp, but I only have one, and she has it. So I gave it to my mom when I graduated because her raising triplets, having to work and all that kind of stuff, she could have done it. But the person that I gave my paper to, the only book that's ever been produced from that, Elise Tafau has my book, and that's my dissertation and everything. It was presented to him just so that he could know that how much influence that he did have on really a lot of missionaries that came through Samoa. And it just wasn't the Tennessee group. It was people from California, people from England, everybody that came to Samoa that worked with the Baptist churches has been impacted by Elise Tafau, even all the way up, like I said, into Alaska, into Hawaii, and into California. Yep.
So how about the other part? Have you mentored anybody?
I think I've mentored, you've discipled.
You probably are now.
Yeah, well, you mentored disciple people, but I would say, have I done something on that level where I have completely poured into somebody like that where, no, but I think I'm glad you asked me that question, because that's going to be a challenge for me in 2026, thinking about it is, who have you poured into like that? Because I could probably be honest and say I've never poured into anybody.
Who do you look at now, like being back here as? And when I say mentor, I don't think that's always like this formal, like mentoring type relationship. But like, are the Bruces, are they that way, or is there anybody else in your life right now that you really look at and be like, man, they're really doing it?
There's some,
right.
And I don't want to embarrass some men. There's some men of this church that run some significant businesses. And being able to look at them and say, all the time that it takes to run your multi-million-dollar business, and yet you're here on Wednesday nights pouring into middle school, high school kids, or you're here on Sunday mornings pouring into connect groups. That to me is encouraging. It is, because I would love to say that if I was in another job, I would be doing the same thing, and I would hope, but at least they have modeled it now, so that if I ever am out of ministry again and doing something else, I know that there's the Roger Woodward out there that's running his business all week, and then on Sunday morning is ready to pour into some young couples. And so that's encouraging. And there's a bunch of people at this church that do that. And so I would hope that we could all say that we would do the same thing if we had that chance.
So, kind of last question here, and you've answered this a lot in different ways, but this basically, what does it mean to be a Christian man?
I think follow the plans that the Lord has for you. We get stretched as men in this society. We have a lot of weight on our shoulders, a lot of weight that I think people don't know that men are carrying, responsibility that men are carrying. So to me, if you're to say what defines a Christian man, is somebody that's on their knees studying the Word and truly asking the Lord to guide them. What that means for each man is going to be different, but I think that a Christian man is someone that is really truly seeking after the Lord and really going after it. I mean, we got a bunch of things that pull us in different ways, whether it be sports, whether it be our businesses, anything like that. But for those men, for their kid and their spouse to be able to say, no, I know my husband is really seeking the Lord for our family. I think that's what a Christian man looks like.
Is there any advice you would give a young person going into ministry?
Yeah, don't think you know everything. I mean, find somebody.
I think that's good for anything.
Seriously, at 45, there's still so much for me to learn. I was telling a guy today, I said, hey, this is what this person told me. Of course, it was him. But I was like, that's what you told me we were supposed to be doing. So let's do what we're being told to do. But to not think that you know everything and then allow somebody to pour into you. You got to be able to allow somebody to pour into you these days, because we have such little amount of time that you got to make an effort to allow people to pour into you.
Yeah.
And so
I think that's true for anything we do in life.
Yep.
You go and you start a new career, a new job or something. Don't go into it thinking you know everything, because you don't.
You don't. Yeah. And nobody wants to teach you if you think you know everything.
Right.
They're just going to write you off, and you're going to say, nobody wants to be around me. Yeah, because you think you know everything.
Because you're a jerk.
Exactly. Don't be a jerk. Hey, that's my influence to the young people wanting to go into ministry. Don't be a jerk.
That's awesome.
There you go.
All right. So, Nora, you've been in here all day. I want to ask you a question. Are you okay with that? I want you to tell me your favorite thing about your dad. Is there anything you like about your dad? Nothing. What's your favorite thing to do with your dad?
Build.
Build? What do y'all build? Or how funny was it when he locked his keys into his car?
Ooh.
And we had to have the police come unlock his car?
That was recent, wasn't it?
Did you make fun of him for that? You didn't?
Wait, what was more funny? Him coming to do it, or us having to put the axe through the truck to get the keys? Remember when we locked the keys in the woods, and we had to use the axe to bust the window? Yeah, which one was better? The one when the police officer helped us, or the one when the axe helped us?
Police officer.
Yeah, it was.
And aren't you doing some kind of martial arts now? What are you doing?
Krav Maga.
How do you like that?
Good.
You do? Have you used any of it on your dad?
Kind of.
Do you win?
Sometimes.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And Nora, thank you for being here and hanging out with us. I'm sure it was a lot of fun listening to us talk. Okay. All right. I'm going to say a prayer for us and we will be done. God, thank you for this night, letting us be here together and hear about Brian, his testimony, what life is like for a missionary in the Pacific Islands and having a family, the impact that he's having on men and families now and the role he has here at First Baptist. Thank you for letting Nora be here with us and hang out and again talk this a little bit about her dad. is so great, getting to see, daughters spend time with their fathers and everything, and the impact that a good father has on them. Be with us as we go throughout this week, and help us lead men to Christ, and help us lead not just men but everybody. In your name I pray, amen.
Amen.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Path, a podcast production of the men's ministry of First Baptist Church in Hendersonville, Tennessee. For more information, or if you have questions, please visit our website at FBCHville.com. That's FBCHville.com.